If you're in the market for a mobile computing solution and you're torn between getting yourself perhaps a tablet like an iPad or going the way of a laptop, then perhaps a hybrid between the two in the form of the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Fold is for you. Hey, what up? It's your boy MobbJustice back again with another video, and for today we are going to be getting into a review of the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Fold. Quite an interesting device, sort of bridging that gap in between the world of something like a laptop and a tablet, sort of fusing them in one, and at the same time it's a folding device. As always, this video is brought to you by the team over at Lion Media. Head on over to check out some of the crispiest photo, video and audio content. That's www.lionmedia.com. Head on over, check it out and just see what the team can do for you. Now, before we begin, thank you to the team from Lenovo South Africa who sent out the ThinkPad X1 Fold. I had it for a period of about 2 weeks, during which time I got to put it through some of its paces. The Lenovo team has not paid for this review and have not seen this content. Right off the bat, I think this is a really cool machine. It's the first time that I've spent an extended period of time with a foldable device, and especially one that folds out to be as big as it is. So if you are someone who wants something that's mobile but at the same time can be compact with the power of Windows behind it, I really think this would be something to consider. Looking at the unboxing experience, there are three main components. That is the machine itself. You'll find that there is a Bluetooth keyboard inside, as well as a stylus, together with a power cable as the device is charging over USB Type-C. Usually when I review laptops, it's from the point of view of a video content creator, because that's what I do. This is how we edit this very video that you're watching right now. But since we're dealing with a hybrid device, I thought it would be better if we were to sort of compare it to those two things that people would likely be in the market for, either going for a tablet or you're going for a laptop, and this seems to be an interesting middle. Looking at the specs, I'm going to display those somewhere over here, but I would say the standout feature is obviously that beautiful 13.3 inch folding OLED screen. Lenovo actually says this was the first folding OLED PC. It comes up to the 13.3 inches, as I said, so roughly the footprint of an iPad Pro, the 12.9 inch, or a MacBook Pro at 13 inch, or something like a Dell XPS 13. Otherwise, if you want something that's more out in the world, an A4 piece of paper, that's about the dimensions that we're looking at. The specific machine that I tested featured a Core i5 processor as well as 8 gigs of RAM, so not too powerful, which is why I chose to look at it more from a typical productivity point of view, as a mobile is set up for checking emails, web browsing, that type of thing, but also at the same time as a media consumption machine, because that's something that I do, and I can imagine if you're away from home, perhaps traveling, that's something that you're gonna do. And it also gets to test the screen as well as battery life, which is very important for something that's mobile. Looking at the build quality of this machine, it features plastic and leather finish, because you've got the plastic body with a little bit of metal around it, but you also have a leather back, because when it's folded it sort of looks something like a notebook. I did note that this device did not have a headphone jack. People know how I feel about that type of thing. And then at the same time, at the back, it does have a built-in kickstand, which is typical for these types of hybrid machines, so that it can stand. I found that particular kickstand to be really cool. But when you're looking at foldable devices, one of the things that you always are keen to look at, especially from a build quality point of view, is the hinge. A lot has been said about the evolution of Samsung's hinge on the Fold, from the first Fold up to now the Fold 3, and I was very curious to see how the hinge worked, and I'd say the mechanisms are pretty similar to what we see on the Samsung side. However, from a durability point of view, I am a little bit worried because when you look at the device, the leather, between the leather and the plastic, when it's folded out, you can see through, which means there's a gap, and that's just something to keep in mind if you're going to buy something like this, just to make sure that dust particles don't end up getting inside there. And then at the same time, because this is a folding device, you do see a bit of a crease in the middle when the device is folded out, and then it also features a built-in camera, just like most devices of that nature. I do wish though that there was a little bit of a little sliding door over there, just so that you have something that's mechanical to close off the camera. When looking at tablet PC form factors, one of the most interesting things to see is how manufacturers deal with the issue of the keyboard. When you look at something like Surface from Microsoft, you have it as in the form of a cover. For example, on certain models, it's also a detachable case, leaving just the tablet on its own. When you're looking at it from a tablet point of view, something like an iPad, we see that Apple recently came out with its Magic keyboards, right, which then give you that laptop-like experience. Now, with the ThinkPad X1 Fold, what was interesting is that the keyboard itself is a separate piece altogether, and that's because you can use it in two distinct ways. The first one is that you can just lay it on the table, have the tablet over there with the kickstand, and then just use it as you would a normal keyboard. It is a little bit small. I had someone else checking it out, and they did say that it's a bit of a small keyboard, but in its second phase, you sort of see why it's that small, because it's exactly half the size of the screen, which means you can attach it to one side of the machine. It's got magnets on the back, and you also see magnets on the tablet itself. So you lay it there, and then it becomes sort of like a mini little laptop that you can have there. The only thing with that one is that if you're going to use it in that mode, just be mindful of the fact that because of that crease at the bottom, some of the stuff sort of falls off at the bottom because of that crease. One observation I made about the keyboard is the fact that the Bluetooth connection tends to time out sometimes, and the automatic reconnection tends to be a little bit tricky. On the whole, the package itself works quite well, but that's just something to be mindful of. The last bit about the keyboard is a little bit of confusion that I have, just around the design decisions that Lenovo made when they were doing this, because the device itself, right, it charges via USB Type-C, and that is the charger that you get inside the box. But the keyboard charges via micro USB, which is something completely different. So I just wonder why Lenovo chose to do that, because you'd think that it would be better to just have USB Type-C everything, so that the charger can work on all devices, because what it means is if the keyboard is to run out of power, you then have to go find a separate cable that is not included in the package to actually charge this thing up. So just rather have the same charging port. Hopping over to impressions and quirks, there are about 3 things that stuck out to me in my testing, and they all have to do with the process of switching on and waking the device up. Firstly, the device itself, because it is a PC, I think the whole thing with MacBooks and the M1 and all of that, it really brought to the fore that issue of instant wake up when you open the lid of a MacBook, for example. And I remember talking about how instant the Chromebook from Acer that we recently tested was. But with this particular device, it takes a bit of time. You literally see it waking up, not so much like a tablet, but more like you would expect a normal computer to. You hear the little fans going off in the background. It sort of kicks up and then it wakes up like that. So that's one thing. The second thing I noticed was that whenever I would switch on the device, log in, there would always be a low battery warning / indicator that would come up on the screen. Even if the battery was, you know, over 80% or whatever, you'd always have that whenever you switch on the machine. The last one is, I'm not sure whether the problem is hardware or whether it's software, but the device has the ability to unlock using facial recognition on the Windows Hello system. So you input your face and then it can just instantly unlock when it looks at your face. Now, it worked perfectly, you know, for me in the first sort of half of my testing, but after a certain point, the facial recognition wasn't working the way it was anymore, and it would sort of defer me to using a pin code, which was the secondary method of actually logging in. So, you know, just something to take note of. Some additional observations. Firstly, the display, I really liked consuming media on this display. It is an OLED display, which means you get those really rich colors, the deep blacks, you know, and it was quite saturated, but I really enjoyed consuming content on this display. But at the same time, it has quite a good responsive touchscreen, you know, if you're going to use it, you know, without the mouse and all of that stuff, and actually use it with touch input, very responsive. So really great from that point of view. Like many PCs out there and even MacBooks, the camera quality on this device is tough to say the least. You know, possible for your video conferencing, that type of thing, but you know, not really something to write home about. And then moving on to the speakers, this is something that I talk about all the time. Usually on these devices, getting yourself an external speaker of some sort is probably your best bet. But if you are going to be using the speakers on the device, something to take note of is the fact that when you have the device out, especially folded out and in landscape mode, all the sound is gonna come out on the left, right? But if you turn it into portrait mode, you get, you know, that stereo effect, because the sound is now coming out on both the right and the left. It's an interesting design choice that they made with the speakers for the device, but if you're going to be using it for media consumption, that's something to, you know, keep in mind. Up until now, we haven't really spoken much about the Stylus, but in my testing, you know, it works really well. When the Stylus is out, you can put it really close to the screen and it automatically detects, and it has like a little proximity sense, and it, you know, displays like a little thing, like a little circle to show you that it's working. And also, because you have that input, you can use things like, you know, OneNote and other pieces of software where you can, you know, draw and that type of thing. So if you are a creative, someone who is actually drawing or something like that, that might be something to consider. From what I could tell, the Stylus, the lag, etc., you know, was actually pretty good from my testing. A review of a device like this would not be complete without at least talking about Windows 11, because that's what this device shipped with. It was my first time really engaging with Windows 11, because I still use Windows 10 on my machine, and it works very well. And Windows 11, I remember we had a whole video about it, all the new elements and all of that. So it was really great just seeing it. And it's true what they say, that, you know, in tablet mode, things have been centered, and a lot of people talk about how Windows 11 is, you know, sort of reminiscent of Mac OS. But I'd actually argue that when you look at the elements and the way that it's designed, I'd actually liken it a little bit more to Chrome OS. That's what Windows 11 appears like to me. I really like the dock mode and how it's been implemented on Windows 11. And then at the same time, one of the big issues when the operating system came out was the positioning of the dock, and especially the start button, because that's traditionally been in the bottom left on Windows. That's where I prefer it, and that's where I keep it on my machine. But for this testing, I decided to embrace the middle just so that I could see what it was all about. And I think it works better, especially from a tablet point of view. However, there are a couple of things in Windows 11 that, seem overly simplified, because at the end of the day, some of the deeper stuff still goes back to the way that Windows has worked on Windows 7, 8, and 10, right? So finding system information, for example, that took a little bit of time because usually you just go to, this PC systems properties and you're done. But this time it took a little bit, of an extra step to get that in. On the whole, I would say that Windows 11 looks to be a cross between Mac OS and I'd say Chrome OS. A lot of people liken it to, Mac OS, but I would say there are a lot of elements of Chrome OS, especially some of the touch zones that you see along the taskbar. I thought those were cool, but the way they're designed is really quite reminiscent of Chrome OS. Otherwise, I would say that, this seems to be a natural progression of what's going on in the world of Windows. My biggest gripe with Windows 11 is that as a touch platform, I don't think it's there yet. If you're using a mouse, if you're using a keyboard, it works perfectly. But when you're using your fingers, the way that we're used to doing it, on our mobile devices and that type of thing, it's not really the best, especially some of the touch targets. They tend to be, quite small. The interface itself within the OS, it's optimized in that way, especially when you switch to tablet mode. But when you're in a browser, for example, take YouTube, I had a lot of accidental touches, just going through that because, the interface is made more for using a mouse. If you're using the stylus, you can be way more exact and precise with what you're touching. But, for your fingers, I think they still need, to develop it a little bit more. Overall, I really do think that the ThinkPad X1 Fold is a really cool concept. One of the things I've appreciated about Lenovo is the fact that when you look at their machines, such as the Yoga line of devices, that type of thing, they are not shy to try different form factors, to try and push the envelope on design and that type of thing. And that type of thing needs to be applauded. And it was really great experimenting and using this type of form factor. Definitely something that I would consider just as something to to carry around. However, I do think that there are a couple of things that still need to be addressed, such as the fact that you have different charging methods for your keyboard and the device. If it's going to be USB-C, let it be USB-C on all the things. That's the first one. The second one is, I think, as a touch platform, some of these PC devices are let down by Windows, especially if you're going to be doing desktop browsing on a tablet device. It's let down from that point of view. At the end of the day, Windows is a desktop first operating system, so it is understandable that there are a few kinks in the operating system. So in conclusion, who is this device for? I would say that if you're in the market for a tablet device but want to take advantage of the power of Windows, then this is definitely something for you. This is not going to be the type of device that is going to be, chugging through really heavy tasks, such as rendering video or that type of thing. But it is great to have something that has the flexibility of Windows on the go, and especially with such a flexible form factor that can be a big 13-inch display on one end, but at the same time be a small compact laptop on the other. And because of the specs, it's unlikely to be a heavy gaming machine for people on the go, but there are companies that are trying it out. I would actually recommend that if you do want a gaming tablet device of some sort, Asus has its ROG Flow Z series of devices that people can go out there and look for. So that's been it. You can let us know in the comments, what do you think? Are you in the market for a tablet? Have you recently bought up a laptop? Would you want a hybrid between the two? Is this something that you'd consider, that flexibility of having a big screen but at the same time having a compact laptop? Or do you think this is a design that needs to be revised from Lenovo's side? I really think it's cool to see, new and interesting form factors coming through, but you can let us know what you think, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
This is Muffs Too Much and you're watching MobbJustice TV. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. We're there on YouTube. Thank you for watching our video. Subscribe.
No.